return visit now for my next guest, author and criminal defense attorney Sara Azari. Her book, Unprecedented, A Simple Guide to the Crimes of the Trump Campaign and Presidency, will be out in March. She joins me here on set. Each chapter is devoted to someone like criminally indicted or in jail, right?
Correct, Larry. It actually starts with the stories of each of the president's henchmen, you know, Michael Cohen, George Papadopoulos, Rick Gates, Manafort, etc. And then what I did was I devoted a large part of the book to summarizing the Mueller report and the Russia investigation, frankly, because Americans won't read 483 pages of dense material. So I felt that it was a very important piece of our history that should not be forgotten, that the president has not been held accountable for, even by Congress, as we sit here today. And yet it's terrible precedent for future presidents.
As a lawyer, how would you assess the case made by the prosecution for the House in the trial?
The House Democrats. You know, I think there's a lot of should-haves and could-haves and didn'ts when it comes to the House Democrats. The idea that, for example, they didn't charge the president in a separate article for bribery. And that gave a lot of the Republicans leeway to argue, well, where's the crime? Even Alan Dershowitz saying there's no crime. Well, Article 2 of the Constitution does not require crime to impeach a sitting president. It's about high crimes and misdemeanors, which includes abuse of power. So they had a strong case. There's also the other argument that maybe they should have waited, maybe they should have subpoenaed people like Bolton, like McGahn, and then had a stronger case. The bottom line, Larry, is that there's nothing that would have changed the outcome of this sham Senate trial.
Before it started.
Exactly. We had an acquittal before we had the trial. Sham trial, sham acquittal.
As a lawyer, are you disappointed in Alan Dershowitz?
Listen, the cast of characters that are representing the legal team for Donald Trump is from a show called Hypocrisy. You've got Alan Dershowitz, who in the Clinton impeachment was saying, you absolutely don't need a crime. You can impeach a president without a crime. Now he says, where's the crime? He also made a very dangerous statement last week that essentially that every president acts in their own self-interest to be reelected. And so to that extent, Donald Trump is not abusing his power. Then you have White House counsel Cipollone, who was a witness, who was in the room when Donald Trump instructed Bolton to pressure Zelensky with respect to the withholding of the aid and the announcement of the fake investigation. And he's up there lying to the senators about the fact that that happened. And of course, you have Jay Sekulow with his array of lies. And then lastly, you have Ken Starr, who, again, back in the Clinton days, believed that lying about a sex act was important enough to impeach a president, remove him, but abuse of power by Donald Trump is not.
Explain your title, Unprecedented. This never happened before, right?
I don't believe we've ever had a president so corrupt in American history. And it started with the solicitation of election interference back in 2016. I see Ukraine as a continuation of that same scheme. In fact, the day after Mueller testified on the Hill, he was emboldened, felt, you know, exonerated, picked up the phone and began the scheme with Ukraine. So it's all the same criminal conduct that he's continued to engage in. And frankly, I agree with Adam Schiff. I don't think it's going to stop.
What would you give the Mueller report in a scale of A, B, C, D?
I would say, while from a legal perspective, I understand his position and would give him an A. From just a general outcome perspective, I would give him a C or D. I felt that he adhered so strictly to that DOJ policy that prevented him from indicting a sitting president. And we have so many policies in the DOJ that are not followed. It's not law, it's a policy. And it was disappointing that he basically wrote up a memo, a prosecutorial memo, and left it to Congress and to the separation of powers for impeachment.
In doing your research, anything surprise you?
You know, what surprises me, and when I wrote this book, it had a different meaning than it does today. It's more meaningful today than it was when I turned in my manuscript on June 1st of 2019. To me, when I wrote the book, I felt that there was a need for people to understand it. Nancy Pelosi said, you know, it's too murky. We're not going to go with the Mueller report. People don't understand it. So there was a need to understand what happened. Today, I feel like there is even a greater need for a book like this because President Trump has only been impeached on his conduct with respect to Ukraine. This conduct is not addressed, and yet he committed not only impeachable abuse of power, but 10 acts of obstruction of justice which is a violation of the federal code.
Boy, I bet you'd love to get Trump under oath, wouldn't you? Remember, he offered he would come and be under oath.
That's another lie. You know, he also released the transcript of the Ukraine call thinking that it's going to help him and thinking that it's going to have the optics of transparency, but it was actually really bad for him. So he will never testify. Not only he won't testify, he's blocked witnesses and documents from being brought forth in the Senate trial.
He called that phone call a perfect call.
Right. It is a perfect lie. There was nothing good about that phone call. There is nothing good about the evidence that was uncovered that corroborates that phone call was not a good call. And yet, you know, here we are. We had a speedy Senate trial with no witnesses, with no documents, and then now he gets to say that he's exonerated.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Larry.
Sarah, we thank her for her time today. The book, again, is Unprecedented, a simple guide to the crimes of the Trump campaign and presidency, and you can pre-order it now on Amazon. It'll be out everywhere on March 1st. Thank you for joining me on this edition of Politicking.